Hey, we've got Anthony Grimani from Sonatus. You are an audio geek and a musician with over 40 years of experience. Anthony, tell us a little bit more. Give us a nice introduction about who you are and what you do.
Well, in the beginning, there was no sound. No, I had the good fortune of being born into a family of musicians and engineers. So my dad was an electrical engineer who worked in television and radio, and audio, video, and my mom was a professional opera singer. They met at the TV station where she had a music show. And so I kind of was born and bred into that. It's sort of like in my DNA. If you actually suck a bit of my DNA out, you'll see a treble clef in the transistor, I guess. I studied electrical engineering and was always into audio. Had the amazing fortune of getting a job at Dolby Labs in San Francisco, close to where I live here, right out of college, and worked there for a bunch of time. And then was recruited by Lucasfilm to go and work in the THX group to put together some new technologies for a smaller room THX applications. THX was originally for movie theaters. They wanted to expand into home theaters and smaller post-production facilities, and I was hired to run that. And so been doing that for a while. About 22 years ago, I left the comfort of corporate life to start my own company that designs, engineers, and builds recording studios, screening rooms, listening rooms, drum rooms, which we're going to talk a bunch about here. Yeah. And I've been doing that for a while. So I just I guess I'm one of those lucky people that's been able to turn a passion and a hobby into a career, just like a professional drummer, professional guitarist has been able to get from something that they like doing to something that pays the mortgage. And that's been kind of my trajectory over the years.
That's awesome, man. Well, we want to take some time to pick your brain about how these things can be applied to drum rooms for practicing, for recording. So much of 2020 in the podcast we've been discussing with our different guests, how everyone is going back, spending a lot of time at home, practicing, honing their skills, and building their home studio space. And so we've had some wonderful opportunities to talk about mic placement, drum tuning, different things like that interfaces, different types of DAWs that people are using. But more often than not surprisingly probably, but a lot of some of our favorite guests we've had on who've had successful studios and production studios, they talk a lot about the space. They talk a lot about their room, and it's like obviously the performance, the drummer, the touch and tone. But if you're in a bad room, or if it's just there's so many things working against you, it's a struggle. No plug-in in the world can fix some of this.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So little funny anecdote, how I'm even involved in acoustics. I studied electrical engineering. That's about electronics. I know how to design a mic preamplifier, how to design a power amp, how to, the gear. So I in the beginning, I didn't pay much attention to acoustics. I know my dad talked a lot about acoustics and this thing and that thing, and he was big into designing speakers early on, and but nowhere in my original field of education was that an issue, and nowhere in my original work was that an application. But I actually had an accident. I actually had a crash course in acoustics one day at a trade show. I was putting together a demo of a new technology we were developing at Dolby, and we put together a room at a big trade show in Europe and threw speakers in there, and we're demoing this technology, and it sounded like absolute dog, what. It's like, oh my God, what's wrong with our prototype board? Swap out the prototype circuit, put a new one in. Well, it's sounding the same. Okay, what's wrong with our program material? Maybe it's the source, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe the speakers are bad. So after a whole day and a half of troubleshooting the gear, being an electrical engineer, it's all about the gear. I finally had the aha moment. The gear is all working fine, but this room is all echoey, it's untreated, it's noisy, and what's coming out of the speakers, which is good right at the speakers, is getting bounced around by the room. Trade show's opening at 9 a.m. It's now 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm,
And I've had the realization that, oh yeah, you know, I need to put something on the walls like they do in recording studios and good listening rooms. There's just nothing on these walls. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that. So what I did is I went back to the hotel, woke up all of the people in the team, stole their bedspreads. This was in Germany. So, you know, in the hotels, you sleep under a comforter. Stole everybody's comforters, went back to the convention center, nailed all of that up on the rooms. It looked like a bohemian scene, but the room got better. And the demo went on, and the whole trade show was done that way with a bunch of comforters all the way around the room. People thought that was very homey and cute. But that was my first big accident. So then I started to read books on acoustics, talk to people that are reputable in the field, made good friends along the way in acoustics, and transitioned my work from just only electronics into, well, what matters is the electronics, the speakers, and then the space into which the sound is launched, whether it's from an instrument, like a drum, a guitar, or a loudspeaker. The space around the source is extremely important. I have some presentations to like viscerally show you how important that is. But
right.
that's how
Wonderful.
I got into acoustics, and I still talk to a lot of studio folks that you know, go, well, you know, should I buy this mic or that mic, and should I buy this mic pre? Oh my God, this mic pre is like $4,000. Should I get it? Oh my God! And then this wire is like really high quality, you know, made by you know, made in Transylvania with unobtainium, and it sounds so much better. It's like, whoa, hold on. What about your room? Let's worry
Yeah.
about that first, and then we can get to these little incremental things on the back end. You certainly do want a good mic. You certainly do want a decent mic pre, but there's a point at which that's, you know, spending more money and energy on that is a diminishing return, and you want to look at what's the space in which you're recording or monitoring or just playing, you know, for practice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the world of acoustics, and that's what we're going to talk about.
One thing I want to get out of the way is I want to address this idea of sound treatment and soundproofing and some of the misconceptions that are out there pertaining to those two concepts.
Yeah. So people often use the word soundproofing, and when they use that, you don't really know. In reality, you don't know what's in somebody's mind. So let's kind of put a delineation in my slides. You'll be clear about that. In the field of acoustics, there really is three things, but I'm just going to talk about two mainly today. One thing is sound isolation. That's the term to be used. Think of it as privacy. Think of it, you're in your room practicing your drums. Does everybody around you hear you? When you close the door, are you now isolated in this space, and the rest of either your family, the other practice rooms next door don't hear you? That would be a room that's well sound isolated.
Right.
Independent from that is what happens inside the room. How does the sound that's radiating out from your source, whether it's a speaker, a guitar, or drums, how is that bouncing around the walls and bouncing around? And the two are completely separated. So you can put as many sound panels, absorber, diffuser panels, we'll talk about that, the stuff that you buy online or from the store to do acoustical treatment. You can put as many of those as you want on the wall. If you don't do something to the wall itself, the sound's still going to leak out and go bother people around you. And we can certainly talk a little bit about sound isolation, sort of the big picture items of what matters there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool. So, where should we start, Matthew?
Well, I'd love to start with a quote from your website.
Okay.
It says, your room is the final link between your system and your ears. Without control of its acoustics, the room will detract from the sound quality you experience because you mainly receive reflected sound energy at your listening position. And you're talking about like a home theater, but I also wrote down, or the mic's position, because as we know, as sound deflects and it bounces around the room, you're talking about the position where your ear is and how you're hearing it and enjoying that sound in the home theater or in a studio space. You know, you're listening to when you're mixing, when you're engineering, you've got your speakers set up in such a way that you can mix accurately. You can get that great mix that is accurate to what sound you're trying to achieve. When you're recording, a lot of times that microphone is acting like your ear. And so if the reflective sound is out of control, the microphone is going to have the wrong information.
Right.
So I imagine the principles still apply in the same way.
Yeah. So microphones, I'm going to say microphones don't lie. And what that means is our ears do lie. They do. It's
Okay.
really amazing. So for those of you who remember a little bit of math and physics, remember that from 2 points, you can only define a line, right? If there's a source and then another point, which is our 2 ears. In math, you can only tell something on that line. Yet, with our 2 ears, we are able to hear in 3 dimensions. How do we do that? It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So one of the things that humans have, and probably most animals, although we can't really ask, our friend the cat or our friend the dog, how they're hearing. They have ears that tilt around, and they can listen in multiple dimensions. We are able to hear in 3 dimensions by the combination of what's going into our ear canal and how our brain is processing it. So our brain compares the arrival times to the 2 ears and the spectrum of the sound and a bunch of other things that allows us to tell with really good accuracy where something is around us. By the same token, we are able to, with what's called binaural hearing, the combination of our 2 ears and a bunch of brain stuff, to do, I'll just use the term echo and reverb cancellation. Our brain is able to tame down the amount of reverb and echo that's in a room, in a space, wherever, and focus on the first arriving sound. And that's an instinct of preservation. That's actually what keeps us alive in a cave or a forest when there's a lot of sound reverberating around. We can tell where the velociraptor is. And then we go, well, I'm done. If it's a velociraptor.
Yeah.
If it's a slower moving animal, maybe we can climb a tree, run, or whatever. But our binaural hearing, our 2 ears, has the ability, even in very echoey spaces, to pinpoint where the sound is and turn down the reflected sound. Microphones don't do that.
Okay.
They don't have any of that. They just pick up everything. And I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has had the experience of going, okay, I'm hearing one thing. Now I just put up a mic, whether it's a cardioid mic or an omnidirectional mic, and there's so much room tone in it. It's totally reflective. What's going on? It's like, well, the mic doesn't lie. It's just picking up what's going right into the mic and recording that. So if you want, actually a really interesting thing you can do to hear what a room is doing is you just plug one ear. Now you've defeated what's called a binaural hearing, which is that whole process that compares what's entering the 2 ears. And you get, to an extent, just by listening around, you get a little bit more of an impression of what a mic's going to pick up. It's still not totally accurate because this thing produces directivity, that the ear. And don't do a Van Gogh and cut it off. Okay, it's not worth it to hear what you're going to hear from a mic. But there's a lot more sound reflections and reverb and echo in a room than you hear normally as a human being. And I'm going to show you that in a second.
Okay.
So you want to tame that down. Now there's a second part to that. When you're in a room and you're practicing your drums or you're playing anything, you're with a band, you're on your own, whatever it is, all of that echo sound is still going into your ears and it's processed out by your brain. And that actually creates some amount, I'm just going to call it, your brain has to work. It's some brain fatigue to process out that stuff. As you're sitting there doing your practice for 2 or 3 hours and you're listening in a room that's all echoey, it's fatiguing.
Yeah.
And so if you can tame down those reflections and control them, not eliminate them completely, we'll talk about that, but if you can tame them down, it's more comfortable. So just your whole practice session is going to be more comfortable. First time I realized this was relatively early on in my career, is my translated career from an engineer to an acoustician, is we did a post-production room for a well-known company in Hollywood, and treated their room, tuned everything, put new speakers, turned it from a space that was echoey and nasty into something that sounded good. And now you would think what was going on in there is remixing and QC of program material for video releases. And it gets all done. I'm asking the main operator of that room, so what do you think? And I'm expecting, oh, it sounds so much better. Thank you, man. I can finally hear everything in the track. It's so cool. The answer was, this is great. I can actually work for more than 6 hours in here without getting a headache.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What? Oh yeah, man. Before, like 5 or 6 hours, I was toast. I would still put it my 8 hours in, but the last 2 hours was like, wow. So now after 8 hours, I'm still feeling good. I leave, I go home, I'm not yelling at everybody, not kicking the dog, kicking the cat. It's like, what? And I looked into that. What's the deal? What's the fatigue that comes from being in a room that's echoey? So that explains why my clarinet teacher, when I was a kid and playing not so well, was really aggro. I thought it was me playing really crappy. No, no, no. It was him being in a box in an actual practice room. I remember, like a 10 by 10
Oh, right.
box at the conservatory where I went, um, and not and listening to echoey clarinets from really bad players all day long. Don't do it. Treat your room. It doesn't cost that much money. I'm going to show you, some things you can do. The main focus in the slides I'm going to show is around drum rooms. But treat the room, and you'll start off with a more comfortable performance. One, two, it'll sound better, because bouncy, echoey rooms just don't sound good. Your drums are going to bloom. It'll just feel better. If you actually stick some microphones in there, it's going to sound better. And you'll actually think your drum kit suddenly has gotten a whole lot better, and it does, because the room's not screwing it up.
Yeah, yeah. So I also want to give a big thank you to you guys for helping to support our 300th episode giveaway. You guys have a great product called the Kicker 4.0. We were able to give those out to a couple contest winners. They're just a great application for bass drum muffling with some options, just to give you that, the choice of muffling a little bit or a lot. And there's also there's a place for a mic stand, and it's just all in one. It's a really great thing. So Kicker 4.0, we appreciate that. And
I saw on your site, the announcement of that. I'll show that thing real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the shell. You recognize this? This is called a kick drum. Shell.
Beautiful.
This particular one is a not very expensive one. Those of you who may recognize this logo may know what it is.
I see. Yeah, for sure.
Brands, but it's a very cost-effective drum, a kick drum that the heads have been removed on, and that would be. Sorry, let me get back over here. Would be resonant until you did something to damp it. So the kicker. Actually, this one is still in its bag, sealed for your protection. But the kicker is this gizmo that you put inside the kit, like you showed, and it is sized to actually be clamped between the batter head and the resonant head. It comes in many different sizes to match that, and there's various elements you can pull out to make it more or less damp. And on our website, there's a little demo of 2 different kick drums with and without, and so it's right there. You hear it. One's just boing, 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 and the other's nice and thud and tight. Yeah. A lot of that boing, boing you can actually, in recording, you can pull out by putting a low pass filter, damping out the mid ranges, which is, EQ and more work. Or you can just do it acoustically and start off with something that sounds good in the room. So you save a lot of time with that.
Starting at the source, everybody talks about the great sounds come from the source. We also did a Instagram post. I did it from my studio space and showed the different sounds, and it's remarkable, and it's quick, and time is money. And drummers are not only called upon these days to take the track, perform, but because so many of us are recording from home and recording remotely, you have to put the stems together. You have to export them. You may want to do some EQ or compression or things like that if they don't want it raw. But we're going the extra mile these days to do more than we did even 5 years ago. So to expedite the situation. So what a great thing. What a great thing.
If you can deliver a track where whoever's getting it and laying it in, it's just ready to go. It doesn't take a whole bunch of tweaking to make it work.
They love you.
Will be happier, and they go, well, let's use that drummer again. What we got worked. All good.
They love it. They love it. Yeah. Well, so what are some things that drummers need to consider? I mean, a lot of us are setting up in the space that we have.
Right.
So we're talking about a bedroom size space. My space is 11 by 14, 8-foot ceilings. pretty cool, pretty decent. Um, but there's still some issues, you know,
Right.
there's frequencies, there's flutter, there's other things like that. So,
Right, exactly. So what I've got here, um, I have 143 slides I can show you. We're not going to go there. But what um, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to show you kind of a typical recommended concept for what to do in a room that's, you know, about your size. Like what do you put on the walls? How do you lay it out? And I'll kind of show you what I would do. Actually, this room's about your same size. This room would be kind of either a one-car garage or a master bedroom. It's a little bigger than a kid's room. You know, typical kids' rooms are 12 by 10.
yep.
Master bedrooms are 15 or 16 by 10 or 12. So this is more like a master bedroom type size. So I'm going to show you what I would do in a room about that size.
Okay.
So you see a thing that says layout schemes.
I do.
Wow, excellent. So here's what I'm going to do is kind of start with the end of the movie. I'm going to say this is what I would do, and then I'm going to go back and explain why, so you understand the theory behind it. So this is actually a plan set generated from our engineering division called PMI Engineering. PMI Engineering has been around for 22 years. Like I said, has developed about 1,000 different projects over that time. And this is a typical plan set we would deliver to somebody that said, okay, I have a room like this. What do I do? And we go, okay, well, let us study it. We'll engineer it. We'll do a bunch of geeky calculations and then churn that out as a plan set. So here's some interior renderings of what the room would look like. And this is what I would consider kind of a high quality result. So this is somebody goes, I want it really good. I'm going to be recording tracks that I got to deliver that need to work really well. I've got a budget of about, I think what's in these diagrams would end up retailing for, if I remember right, around $2,800 if I'm correct about that.
Okay.
So it's not on the low end, certainly not on the high end. You know, you can easily spend $10,000 or $12,000 on materials you put on the walls for a room this size. So somewhere around $2,800 to $2,900. Forgive me, I just don't quite remember the right number. But there's 4 perspectives of what's on the walls, and there are on the walls there are some absorbers. So these red things are an absorber panel. All right. So what's on the wall is a by the way, the color of the panel is your choice. You can have blue, black, red, gray, whatever you want. This is what on this diagram we're putting on the wall, which is a chunk of high density polyester foam that's covered with a flocking, so it looks like a velvety, smooth finish.
Nice, nice.
And it gets mounted on the wall with this really cool little magnetic thing. So these 4 little magnets. You put a washer with a screw on the wall it's countersunk, and put them at the right positions from the template, and click, that goes right on the wall. No glue, no fasteners other than that. So so there's an array of sound absorbing devices that convert the sound waves actually into heat through friction inside the cells of the foam. And then there's an array of diffusers, of various types of diffusers. And I'm going to actually show you wall by wall what we're putting around.
Okay.
But in a general sense, the walls are lined evenly all the way around with absorbers that are spread all the way evenly. Not so many. I know it looks like a lot here, but if you look at the overall surface area, it's only about 15 to 20% of the wall surface of absorption. So we're not deadening out the room. We're just damping it down a bit. And then there's other gizmos that go on the walls that are diffusers. Those panels scatter the sound back out. Don't absorb it.
Okay.
But instead of the sound bouncing around, going ping, 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 making it kind of shouty and nasty, especially on a mic, it's taking all the sound waves and breaking it out into a little fog, a smooth mist of sound radiation. And there's different types of them. I'll go through all of that. On the ceiling, you'll see in these 4 perspectives from the 4 corners, the middle of the room is largely absorptive, and the perimeter is a bunch of diffusers. Now, The reason to absorb the middle, I often see rooms in which there's diffusion right in the middle. What I found is this: you're going to put some overhead mics to, to both capture all of your brass, all your cymbals and crashes, and also to capture, a bit of a spacious sense of your whole drum kit. And those things are going to be just a foot or two away from your ceiling. If you have an 8-foot ceiling, you have a mic at 6 feet to get as a good overhead, you just have 2 feet. And that's the sound from the drums. It goes up to the, passes the microphone, goes up to the ceiling and bounces right back to the microphone with that short return, makes things sound like dog do. It's like,
right.
Any of you guys that have put in a short delay, a 2 millisecond or 4 millisecond delay on any sound is like, oof, that's nasty.
And I think that there's that analogy of, just overdriving the microphone and it not going anywhere and just causing phasing and other issues. I might be speaking way above my pay grade. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. It ultimately, that round trip puts holes and peaks and holes at different frequency, and everything just sounds phasy. So even if you have a directional,
I was just going to say two things.
A directional.
Welcome Zoom. To Go ahead, right. Is two things that I want to just point out that you talked about: the difference between absorption, an absorber, and a diffuser. That just the important distinction between those two things, and then also the idea of how we're not here to deaden the room, especially at drummers. We're looking for live drums. This is what we're selling to our clients. And when we have limited space, like, I don't want to deaden the room. I want it to be live. I want this air. But it's like, if you're not controlling the sound, then you're going to have phasing issues, and it's not going to be as good of a track. So just to
really
highlight
important.
Those.
Really important. And when later, if we have time, I get into more of the theoretical geekiness of this, I'm going to repeat about 4 times. Don't overdamp the room.
No.
Just treat a bit of absorption, not too much. Now, in the case of drums, what you're trying to, or actually other instruments, what you're trying to get rid of from this, especially the pickup of the microphones, is that boxy sound. That sound you will always recognize if you don't do anything to the room, that has, that character that the slap is so close to the mics, it just sounds boxy.
Yeah.
And our ear recognizes that immediately, because we listen in boxy spaces all the time. So we're trying to get rid of that. And good news is, to get rid of that, you just need a little damping, a little bit of scattering, strategically located, and boom, you're done. It sounds neutralized and not dead. It's not totally sapped. So let me go to the next slide. This is the legend for what I'm going to show in the next slides. We have some 2x4 panels that we're mainly going to put on the ceiling. We have some 2x2 panels, which is that red one I just showed you. We have this product called a big fuser, which is a big, what I call the 3D diffuser, which is, hold on one second, I'll go grab it.
Nice.
Big fuser. I hope you can see this. Actually, I have to back up a little bit to be in the camera. So this is our big fuser. Can you hear me still?
I can still hear you. You've got the screen share. It's a little bit small, but I don't know. I think we can have some pictures too.
Right. I have pictures of it, but this is a big fuser. It's about a 6-inch deep diffuser. It's very cost effective. These things are usually, for most people, are anywhere between $300 and $600. Sonatus, which is a European company based in Croatia, has found a way to make these for, it's about $80 a pop, I think, including shipping. We sell it in a box of 3, so it's $260 for 3 of them, including shipping. So let me actually introduce Sonitus, the company that makes all these things. So Sonitus is based, like I said, in Croatia, about an hour outside of Zagreb. And you go, Croatia, what the hell? Where is that? Well, so Croatia is in Europe, and the eastern part of Europe was part of the kind of the Russian bloc for a long time. And then the wall came down. Everybody went their own way. And this guy called Manuel, a drummer, no less, decided, okay, I'm going to build myself my recording studio and record with my buddies. And he, you know, opened all the books and said, okay, I want to buy some of these, some of these, some of these. Well, he couldn't get them. So he just made his own. He went out and found suppliers that could sell him some foam materials, some wood materials, and he started to make his own acoustical treatments. And then one thing led to another. He started to make them for other people. And then later he just finds himself with a big factory, lots of employees making all kinds of really cool acoustical materials for all kinds of applications, including the kicker that I showed you before, this diffuser and other products. And this is clearly the case that necessity is the mother of invention. So he needed acoustical treatments, couldn't find them, made his own. And good for you guys that are watching this. He's a drummer, so it's all about how to get, you know, his drums to sound good. So that's Sonatus. My company here is the distributor for that product in the USA and Canada and Latin America, called Sonatus USA.
That leads me to a question. There's a lot of DIY sound treatment out there. What is it about this that ups your game compared to going to the fabric store or trying to find something to hang on your wall that is hiding in your attic or at Walmart or something like that?
So that's a good question. I started this in the world of DIY. So, you know, I had to make my own things. You know, originally it was those famous comforters, right, that I stuck on the wall.
Right.
It is a pain in the ass to make those. So most common way to make an absorber is you buy a chunk of dense fiberglass, and then you cut it to the shape you need. And then you go buy fabric, and the fabric has to be acoustically transparent so that the sound gets through the fabric into the fiberglass. The fiberglass is the real absorbing material, the fibrous material that's going to convert sound, the actual sound energy into heat. That's how it absorbs. It can't just trap sound and keep it in there and then you wring it out and it all falls down. No, it's just the air molecules vibrate and they friction up against the fiberglass. So in the process of doing that friction, you've also gotten fiberglass all over your arms, in your face, in your lungs, and you're coughing for days after that.
Yeah, you think you got COVID, and it's fiberglass.
It's fiberglass. It's not COVID. Sorry. So you cover it with fabric. You have to glue the fabric. It's going to look like crap the first 10 times you do it. And you're finally going to, learn how to like stretch it all nice. So you have an absorber panel that looks kind of like this. This is I'm talking here about this particular one's made out of rock wool with a fabric covering. Okay, this is hard to make to look good. So you're going to spend a bunch of time doing that. And by the time you add all of the materials together, and if you value your time at all, like if just at minimum wage, okay, whatever that is, depending on where you are, but if you value your time at about $20 an hour, which is not minimum wage, but that's, what opportunity cost you have in doing something different than making those, you've just paid about 4 times the price of that absorber than you can buy it either over the internet or, from a supplier.
Well, and I think another thing that people need to consider is so many of your potential clients, if you're working remotely or having them in your studio space, people listen with their eyes. Yep. They come in, and if this was my studio space here, people would be like, oh, great. But if they walk into my studio space and things are painted and look good, and I've got some nice things on my desk, they're like, oh, okay, this is gonna be a fun experience. I'm feeling creative, and we're gonna go.
It looks good. It doesn't look like a kludge. So that's making an absorber. It's hard. Making a diffuser out of wood materials, which is a DIY. If you look that up, you'll find lots of people all over the internet that tell you how to build one. Same thing. Unless you're a woodworker and you have a really nice wood shop, and you have access to materials that are not too expensive, it's gonna be a pain. For some people, that's not a pain. It's fun. They like doing that. Great. Just go ahead, do it. If you're a drummer, you're a working drummer, and you really want to focus on your craft, I would, at the cost of what you can buy these things from suppliers, both us and other very good suppliers out there, it's not worth your time. I just wouldn't do DIY it. You're going to be doing just like Manuel, in Croatia, and you're going to spend a whole bunch of time, and in the end you're going to find yourself with a factory making this stuff, and you go, my God, where have I gone? What have I done?
I want to play drums, man.
This is not my beautiful drum. So
this is not my beautiful house, my beautiful wife.
This is my factory. So On this diagram, just to reintroduce, I'm going to show you some absorber panels that are 2 foot by 4 foot, some that are 2 foot by 2 foot, some big fusers, some 4 fusers, which is a I'll show you that later. It's a different type of diffuser that diffuses only in one direction. I call that a 2D diffuser, not to refer to the quadratic residue equation, but just to talk about the sound comes in and scatters the sound in 2 dimensions, what's called a heavy disc. I'm also going to talk about what's called a decosorber, which is an absorber in which there's a decorative faceplate that makes the material look better, but also absorbs better at low frequencies. So it's not as much of a high frequency absorber. It's more of a mid bass to upper mid range absorber. And I'm also going to talk about corner, what we call the deco trap, which is a corner absorber. I'll show you that also a little bit later. So this is what the room would look like. You look at the door that the wall that adjoins the door. So let me go back to these diagram. Where's the Matthew? Can you see my mouse moving here?
I can, yeah, the bottom right-hand corner.
That you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's call this the left wall. I'm calling it the left wall because when you sit on your drum stool, that's the wall that's to your left. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, on the left wall, I would recommend putting just 4 of these 2 by 2 absorbers. So that's 4 square feet and 4 square feet and 4 square feet and 4 square feet. That's 16 square feet. And 16 square feet out of, let's say, a room about your length, the total surface area here is about 180 or 200 square feet. So that's just 16 and 180. It's not that much absorption. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to put those there, and what they're going to do is they're going to absorb out the majority of the wavefront that leaves your drum kit and would normally hit that wall, go bam, and come back and jump back and forth between the 2 walls and make your recordings not sound good and also make your ear brain system suffer. So these are typically about 30 inches off the floor, 28 to 30 inches off the floor, just capturing the sort of the main part of the sound waves. Then in between those, I'm going to suggest putting some big fusers here. That big chunk that I just showed you, the big fusers again are what I call the 3D diffuser. Sound that hits it is going to scatter out in a hemisphere.
Yeah.
So some of the sound is going to bounce back out. Where's my mouse? Is going to bounce horizontally. Is going to bounce vertically. It's just going to scatter back out evenly all the way around the room. And then over here, I'm going to recommend putting the 4 fuser, which is again a hemi disc diffuser. The sound that hits it is going to scatter back out in a plane. And you can intersperse those. What we're just trying to do is to take the sound off your drums and scatter it into smaller little pieces, which is the same thing that would happen in a big room. So drums can sound really good in a big recording studio. We're talking about a room that's maybe 50 foot with 16 or 20 foot ceilings. There's a studio not far from here called The Plant, very well-known room, very, a famous studio. Our chief engineer used to be the chief engineer over there. It's getting reopened. Actually, Ken Calais, who had produced all the early Fleetwood Mac stuff there, has bought the place up with a bunch of associates, and they're reopening that. And there's rooms in there that are really big, really tall ceiling. You don't need a lot of treatment. The drums bloom. They sound great. And the microphones don't pick up that tight echo that comes from close walls. We're trying to simulate that.
I see, yes.
That's a really important concept, is we're going to try to get rid of that tight slap echo. And by using diffusers, we're going to try to make the sound bloom. It's just going to go. Now, to be fair, you're never going to get to 2 seconds of reverb time that make things sound like, sorry, can't get there. That would be a lie to say that. But by breaking it into smaller pieces, what the mic is going to pick up is just going to sound smoother, more open, and just more pleasant. So summarizing all this yada, yada, yada. 4 absorber panels, 2 by 2 or 2 by 4s. And then 4 diffuser panels to scatter the sound. We're leaving some amount of reflective surface. Notice I'm not putting stuff everywhere. Just in the, if you imagine being a wavefront going to that wall, you're encountering absorption and diffusion, all cool. Now, what about these other gizmos? What's down here is again what we call the decosorber. It's a decorative absorber, mainly a low frequency absorber. It works from about 150 hertz to about 1 kilohertz, so it doesn't absorb too much of the highs, which you don't want to overabsorb, and it just kind of takes out that low frequency whoomp that you usually get out of rooms that are too small. And then finally in the corner is our version of a bass trap. We actually have 3 or 4 different products we sell, but it's what we call the deco trap. I'll go grab it 1 second.
Yeah.
So deco trap looks like this. Again, I'm on the small picture here, but it's a triangular gizmo that fits in the corner of the room. You stack a few of them, and the front face is this beautiful decorative wood that's got different available patterns.
Yeah.
Vanna white.
Looks good.
This is called the quad because the patterns are sort of quadratic in a way, or you can think of it as Morse code. It's available in different colors. This is the walnut, but you can get it in a light wood, in a red wood, all kinds of different finishes. We also have different patterns than this, all of which the purpose is to make this be a diaphragm absorber in the front, so it actually really does absorb low frequencies, really is a trap, not just a big chunk of foam.
Mm-hmm.
And also filter out the mids and highs. So high frequency sounds are going to bounce off this, which is critical. You don't want to over absorb the highs, because that's going to make the room and your recording sound muffled, muted.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, that's important.
So that's our left wall. This is what I would call the front wall, the one you're staring at when you're sitting at your drum kit. Looks remarkably similar. You got some absorbers, some diffusers, two of the big fusers. Again, big chunk of this thing that looks like a skyline. And then 2 of the 4 fusers, which actually I have a variant of that over here. Probably can't see that.
Anyway, yeah, for sure, yeah.
That's a 4 fuser. And you'll then see the other sets of bass traps, the deco traps. Let's look at the other wall. Hey, looks familiar. So this is the right wall, the one opposite from where the door was in our little theoretical diagram. So in this case, 6 absorbers, 2 4 fusers, two of the big fusers, and then some more of the mid-frequency absorbers, the deco absorbers, and more deco traps. And then finally, the back wall, the one that's behind you, 4 absorbers, 2 of the big fusers, 2 of the 4 fusers, and then you see another deco absorber and a deco trap. So again, just going around the room, it looks basically like rinse and repeat all the way around. So some absorbers, some diffusers, a bit of low frequency absorption, some traps, absorbers, diffusers, low frequency absorption traps, more of that, more of that. Now, important, a lot of people forget the ceiling or deaden the ceiling. They put absorbers everywhere, put a drop ceiling with, acoustic tile. Don't do that. You need stuff that's blooming around that way. Mm-hmm. And the way I found that I find that it sounds good from doing a bunch of of small rooms that you put drums in and you're trying to do recordings that sound every bit as professional as what you could get at the plant, is absorb the whole middle of the ceiling. We have these panels 2 inches thick called canvas. And to be fair, we're not the only game in town. Sounds weird for somebody to go, you can buy it from us, buy it from other people. That's the reality. I don't want to lie to you. No fake news here. There's a lot of good suppliers out there. We have our offer. Our prices are competitive. The quality is really good. You're buying it from Croatia. How exotic. But a good 2-inch thick, either fiberglass or rock wool based absorber on the ceiling. We just fill the middle of the ceiling, and then around the perimeter, put more diffusers. So in this case, our layout is a set of 4 fusers along the long walls. In the corners, the big fuser, so that the sound that hits those gets splashed in 3 dimensions and bounces around the corners and comes back after it's like all these little pellets, these small mist of sound. And there you have it. So not particularly complicated. I know these renderings make it look like, man, there's a ton of stuff on there. Yeah, that's an idiosyncrasy of what happens when you turn this around sideways. But that's the overall view of the drum room. Looking at this wall, which is the right wall again, some absorbers interleaved with some diffusers, both 2D and 3D, some low mid absorbers, some corner traps, and the same thing all the way around. So if you do this to your room, and actually if you start with picking the right color, going to our website, ordering this thing for somewhere around $2,800 to $3,000, including shipping, and then installing it all like this, it's going to, one, make a room that sounds great to be in and play, and then give you a room that when you put up microphones and you do a recording, whether it's just a spaced pair to do minimalist recordings or full multi-mic recording, it's going to sound a whole lot better than it did before.
I think that's a really good point, because there's lots of great opportunities to record with minimal miking when your room is sounding good. And that should be an option for clients that don't want to mess around, or they're looking for a very organic sound. And if they're coming to you for drum tracks, real drums from a real drummer, then deliver something that that is something they can't get in the box.
Right. So if you can do, so I'm not one of those guys that, you know, you'll find sometimes in either audiophile or very purist circles that everything has to be done with 2 mics, end of story. But if you can actually just put up 2 mics in a place, and you obviously need one for the kick too, 2 mics and a kick, and just do that recording. And if it sounds good, man, you saved yourself a whole ton of time and energy. Your files are smaller. Everything is easier. Once you put up a whole lot of microphones, you then have to deal with inter-microphone phasing. That as you start to open all the faders, you start to hear the interactions between them. It gets complicated. Not to say that a multi-mic recording cannot be made to sound good. It just takes more work. It takes more care, both for you and whoever the client is. So the better control the room is, the more you run a chance of being able to use less mics and get that really nice organic tone. There's a old buddy of mine that I sent a kicker to, who's got a room with a bit of treatment and stuff, and he was a professional drummer for a while. He decided I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. He started to work in the audio business, for manufacturers of audio gear. Now he's retired, and he sent me a recording of him playing in his room. It was just his phone. He just stuck his phone on a little stand and just him playing, and it sounded great. Amazing. The room is treated. He's got a kicker in his kick drum, so it's not flabby. And for the type of music he plays, is like, wow, that you could just lay in a bunch of instruments in there, lay in a singer, and you're done. So it's a cool concept. I have a few images of what this could look like. Granted, this is a rendering made by one of our project engineers, Mario Pravidi is his name, and he loves to geek out with photorealistic renderings. But this is what a room like that would look like. In the middle of the room, rather than a drum kit, we have that same seat from the Maxell commercial. Whereas those diagrams make it look like there's a lot of stuff on the walls, this is kind of what it could look like.
Okay.
Now, I should clarify one thing. We within Sonatus and within other manufacturers, we kind of have these 3 different tiers of quality of product.
Right.
We have a standard tier, we have a premium tier, and an ultra tier. It's kind of like the Radio Shack approach of good, better, best. And the diagrams I showed all assume an acquisition of our products in the kind of in the middle tier, the better, what we call premium solutions. So that's what I just showed you. All right. This particular diagram, I realize, is what we would do with a pair of speakers for a mastering room, for example. But same kind of thing for your drum room. This is what we have available at the tier below, the standard tier. We have absorbers, 2D and 3D diffusers, all of that. That's what it would look like. And at the ultra tier, the high end one, this is what it would look like.
Okay.
That same room I mentioned before for $2,800 would end up being more like $7 or $8 grand. And what you've got there is treatments like what's behind me. So I'm in one of our listening labs. Over behind, I'm pointing to it, there is our 2D absorber diffuser, which is this thing here on the wall called a 6 strip. And then in the corner over here is some of our 3D diffusers called a Big Fuser Solid, which is what you see in these diagrams over here. It's all solid wood. It's more expensive. forgive me, somewhere around 7 or 8 grand for doing a drum room. So the other solution here, I'm blanking, and if Andrew, who's in the other room, is listening, he can actually go look it up. I'm going to say somewhere around $1,500 for the standard, 2,800, and something like 7 grand for the high-end solution.
Sure.
Same recipe, by the way. Same materials put around. Just these are higher visual reward, as in they look better. They do work a little bit better. You know, they're thicker materials, higher quality, and this is lower visual reward. Still work very well. Just don't, when your client walks in, they're not going to go like, wow, look at this room.
Yeah.
So sometimes I get people to go, well, that's all great, but I have a room in which I'm miking my drums, but it's also my mix room. What do I do?
Right.
Well, these would be recommended layouts for a mixing environment, very similar. Actually, I'm going to go forward. For that same size room, if instead of in the middle of the room you had your drums, instead of that, if you actually put a desk, a chair, and a keyboard, this would be the layout. It's a little bit different in that there's a refocus because the sound's coming out of speakers in front. I would say if you set the room up for drum playing and miking, and you then went into the middle of the room and put a desk there and listen to your speakers, it will be fine.
Yeah.
It won't be broken. If you said, well, I really want to make sure it's optimal, with our magnetic mounting kit, you can actually move things around. You can take the diffusers from over here and move them there, the absorber from here.
Oh, good point.
Very, very cool.
Now, let me ask you about the ceiling, because above the desk, you have those clouds, you have that absorbers above, as you did for overheads above your cymbals, you've got those absorbers. I see a lot of studio setups where they've got their drum set up, you turn around or turn to the side or whatever, and there's your desk. So you're kind of almost in the same spot. You might switch out a seat, but you're kind of sitting in the same spot of the room. Just one way, there's the desk, one way, there's the drum set. So you can stop and start sessions, and then you can turn right around and mix. So it's possible that you can set that up above you
so that it works.
Yeah.
So so if you're trying to be super precise about this, like, you know, what do I really need? It is a generally accepted practice that the ceiling point that's between your monitors and your head, feels like I'm doing a music video. Strike a pose. Monitors here, your mix position is here. And this point you really want to absorb. You don't want stuff coming back off the ceiling, even diffused. You just want to kill that. That's for mixing, for listening to speakers. And then it's generally accepted that past that, around, you want to scatter the sound around up in the ceiling, and that kind of makes things sound more real, better. You get a better sound stage. So if you took your drum room as it was before and you turned from one direction to the other, you would have absorbers all in the middle. And in this perimeter right here, you would have a row of diffusers. And it's possible that the way your monitors sound may not be ideal, because the sound that would go up would bounce off diffusers. It may not sound good. I'm using a lot of maze and possible because it could sound absolutely fine. If you wanted to be able to reorient it all, dude, just use that magnetic mounting thing, and you can, you know, take the diffusers off that are in that ceiling section, and not when you do pre-mixing or whatever, but when you're doing that final mix, just take the diffusers off, put the absorbers there just for that, and boom, you're done.
That's amazing.
Easy enough. So this is a 150 square room rendering. So 15 by 10 room, really common. And what we would do for that room for mixing, for, you know, pair of speakers, desk, keyboard, you know, for writing, mixing, whatever. And you could set up a room like this. One of the things that's interesting is that the middle of the back wall is mainly absorbed. It used to be thought 30, 40 years ago that you put diffusers all the way against the back wall. And then acousticians have found, well, that doesn't always work. The image is often kind of funky. There's a really, really good paper presented at AES. I think I want to say 20 or 25 years ago by Sean Olive and Floyd Toole, two very illustrious acousticians in our field, to come out of the National Research Council. It's called about diffusion and confusion, if you guys want to look that up. And it's all about, like, you know, how much diffusion do you put in a room? Where do you put it? And lining up the whole back wall with diffusers is a great way to confuse your stereo image. Don't believe me? Read the paper. These guys are doctors in this stuff. Not medical doctors, but doctors in acoustics. Yes, there are those. They have, you know, DR and their name behind that.
That's right.
And they have found, you know, obscure reference to some political stuff.
Right,
They have found
I hear you.
that the best thing to do with the middle of your back wall, is to absorb it, and then put scattering on the outside. So that's what we're showing here. So four big absorbers in the middle, a big 2 foot by 2 foot, those same things I showed you,
Gotcha.
and some diffusers on the outside. And if you're turning that back into your drum room and you use the magnetic clip, you just go, okay, pop, pop, just move them around.
Yeah.
Or maybe this works fine. I would think this is too much absorption in the middle of a wall for a drum to bloom right. So you can move it around and adjust it. Anyway, that's what I would do in your room. I know I have the pictures. We can do more on that. I will say that we do offer support services where if somebody sends us pictures of their rooms and some dimensions and a little bit of a little description of what's right and what's wrong, we can help give advice and go, well, you should do this and you should do that. For a small fee, we can generate a full set of diagrams that you can use for either yourself to install them or give them to a contractor to install the panels. So anyway, there's a bunch more of these diagrams. This is what a room would look like if you use the higher end panels, and there you go. So now, what about 5.1 mixing? So this is, I've been working around surround sounds ever since I joined Dolby it's almost 40 years ago. Big fan of multi-channel sound. And what do you do differently if you're actually recording for multi-channel and then remixing in multi-channel? Well, the good news is not a whole lot different. It's maybe some reorientation of a few of the things, but you don't really need to do much of anything different. If the room is neutralized and not over absorbed, it's all going to work out well. So that's some more diagrams of that, and I'm not going to spend any time on that. So summary of this business of reflections is that they cause discomfort, they degrade sound quality and recording quality, and the treatments are absorption and diffusion, just not too much of either of them, and you want to place them strategically. So the right amount at the right location. So Matthew, I don't know how much more time you want to spend on this. I will, as you can tell, I can talk about this for the next 8 hours. I'm going to let you tell me to like zip it or continue.
No, I think this is a really good, I think if we do a little bit of a follow-up on hopefully some of the progress that I can make on my room and apply some of these concepts to really demonstrate. I think it's important to point out the fact that what you guys offer is more than just the products themselves. I mean, you're very candid about, look, we offer these, we have competitors that offer nice stuff as well. But I mean, just your knowledge and ability to provide some customer service and guidance to people because this can cost a lot of money. If you're investing in your business, if you're investing in this, you want to do it the right way.
Right. It's confusing. So without sounding flippant, I still haven't figured this out. I've only been doing it for 40 years. I've read a lot of books and I've figured out sort of the big chunks, like the big core issues. There's a ton of little subtlety in how this room and how that thing works and this theory from this kind of speaker that's confusing. And anybody who says around acoustics and psychoacoustics, I got it all, you should just go, probably not, because it's a really complicated science, kind of like medicine. There's people who practice medicine their whole life, they're only practicing. That's the joke. What we like to do is help with as much of our knowledge and experience, and having read a lot of papers, I have a whole file cabinet of AES, Acoustica, and other papers that our inspiration, that people have been paid to do this research. We use a lot of that. We've tried a lot of different things. We've made our mistakes, and had to fix them at our cost often. And we're here to share that with you. And the way we share it, by the way, is we start off by offering packages. So we have taken all these absorbers, diffusers, bass traps, and we've grouped them into one of those recipes that says, if you use all these things and you shake it right and you put it on the walls right, it's probably going to sound good. Kind of like those companies that sell you, you can buy all the ingredients to make dinner. They show up at your doorstep with an instruction, and you follow the instructions. You don't have to go to the market and figure out what it is. You just follow their recipe. It's all there, and you end up with something where everybody goes, "Wow, you're a really good cook." Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So we kind of do the same thing. If you go to our website, it's called sonitususa.com. I don't know if I have a website link here anywhere. I could probably put
we'll have it down below in our show notes and in the description. No.
So if you go to that website, you can look at the individual components, or you can look at packages. And where those packages, again, they're not made to a price point. They're made to hey, a room that's about 250 square feet needs this much absorption, this much diffusion, this much bass trapping, and it needs to be laid out more or less this way. Look at the recipe. You're basically, by doing that, you're benefiting from 40 years of goofing around to figure out what it is. And then beyond that, if you go, look, I think I like this package, but my room's a little different. By the way, notice that in all my diagrams, there's a room with just a door. There's no windows. There's nothing else in the way. Fat chance you're ever going to get that in your converted bedroom, right? So everyone's going to have their own version of this, and we're here to help. Send us your diagrams. Either I will, Andrew will, Mario will give you some advice on what to do over here and how to apply these.
Yeah. No, there was a couple things in your presentation here that really resonated with me that I hadn't thought of. And I know that everyone else that's watching this, there's going to be maybe a point in their knowledge, their experience that is going to be, there's going to be something that's going to resonate with them as well. And maybe just kind of give them a little bit of more of a window into tackling some issues. The idea of the, phasing for me, and just trying to better understand that. Some of us have spent a lot of time and many years working on recording and have this engineering experience. I want to go out on a limb and say a lot of our listeners who are drummers don't have quite the experience at engineering and understanding a lot of this stuff. So we are on quite a learning curve here and trying to play catch up as we're wearing many hats at the same time. So anything that you're talking about is just, it's extremely useful in just adding to the much needed knowledge that we have to continue to do what we're doing, especially these days. But even once things get back to normal, I think a lot of us have the recording bug, and we're going to keep doing it. And we want the best sounds we can. So.
Absolutely. And so, like I said in the beginning, beyond just the recording, there's also what sounds comfortable to our ears while we're spending, some number of hours a day in our music rooms doing what we do.
Oh yeah. Gosh, man. I know that like years ago when I first started playing, and, it was loud venues and monitors, no in-ear monitors, and just volume, and my ears would be ringing at the end of the night. I was physically exhausted. Right. And then when sounds got better, venues were better, I understood how to tune drums, and then maybe using more in-ears, I just felt like I had more energy. I wasn't just completely wiped out at the end of the night. Yeah. It's amazing.
So I spent many years performing, and at some point I had to decide, am I going to do music professionally for the rest of my life, or stick with engineering? I decided to stick with engineering. But yeah, I've been on stages where I think the combination of that, banging around of the echoes together with the anxiety over how it's sounding, because here you are with these musicians you play with all the time, and it just sounds like complete crap. Mm-hmm. Because the acoustics are bad. And you're like, man, I'm playing no, it's okay. You're doing the best you can, but that anxiety for the whole performance, hour and a half, 2 hours, is exhausting. And, what to do? Well, I mean, we're not here to talk about venue acoustics, but, it would be nice if venues did a better job speakers have gotten a lot better. In-ear monitors help a lot because now you don't have all of this conflicting sound that's bouncing all the way around. But the comfort, what I call sound comfort, is really, really important in the end.
But I can also tell you that even with in-ear monitors, if the room is just out of control, in-ear monitors does not matter, because even if you're getting your mix from your acoustic drums, and yeah, there's places that even with my same setup, my same in-ears, my same mixer, each room is different. Right. And there are rooms that I really like in Nashville, and rooms I do not like in Nashville.
Yeah.
But I do want a good room in my house where I'm learning songs and where I'm recording. So yeah, this is helpful. Yeah.
I just want to again be really clear. Everything I talked about here is about how to provide sound comfort and sound quality inside the room. None of this is going to do any more than a decibel or two of sound control to the outside. It'll attenuate a little bit, but not even worth talking about. A dB is nothing between friends. So next time we talk, I'll dive into a bunch of slides about how you build walls so that you can actually provide privacy, sound isolation, what people call soundproofing, I guess. And that's important too for drummers and musicians.
I love that. Yeah, I've already put into practice, but if we're able to have a discussion exclusively for the podcast Working Drummer, we would be very grateful. It would be awesome.
Yeah,
we would
love to do
appreciate it.
That's the next session. Next.
Yeah, week. Nice. Well, this took, once we got started, I think we're good. I apologize. I'm glad you had the time. I'm glad you had the freedom. I hope this was enjoyable and gave you a little break in your day between some of the more formal meetings. We're not too formal here.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Now I have to actually go back to my desk and get some real work done. Design rooms for people. No.
Yeah, I appreciate your doctor reference too. That was good.
Yeah.